everybody. Happy Sunday. We are here for Sunday Devotional, and I have happy news and a little bit sad news. Uh, it's, it's pretty amazing, I think, what we've been able to accomplish. And this is now our 28th Sunday Devotional. When I started, I mean, I honestly thought we'd be doing it for a month or two. I never in a
Me
million
too.
years thought it would be nearing October. And and Chris, you've been so amazing to do this with me, and I've been so grateful. But I'll just start off by we are going to go on a hiatus for a little bit, because it's just very time intensive. People don't realize.
Yeah.
um, and so we're going to take a little break, but I'm still hopeful that we can come back for maybe for Christmas, or, maybe for a Thanksgiving message or something like that. Like I'm not seeing this as I think it's just a hiatus, a little break. But again, I'm so grateful for you for doing this every week since March. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. I agree. I feel like this is a season finale. And
Yeah.
when season two comes, it will be epic and glorious. I mean, I agree. I did not think it would be nearing October and we would still be doing this. And I'm glad because during this crazy time when there was no church, I mean, I'm sure you feel the same. I mean, I'm a Christian. I do my Bible reading and stuff, but having this each week, it's like, okay, so we're picking a topic and here's something for me to zero in on and talk to God about. And it's kind of just been a blessing to have that
Hmm.
because it's weird how church has changed and morphed. And over the last several months, even now, even though my church is meeting outside in our church's courtyard and stuff, it just doesn't have that same feel. So it's been nice each week having this as an amazing blessing. So thank you for having this idea
Yeah.
and inviting me to do it.
It's been very life affirming. I mean, especially for the first 3 months when I was really isolated because they thought that I had the COVID, that I might have the COVID kind of a thing. So I wasn't even seeing my parents at that point. It was I was very isolated, and I think this was so important for me to have this, to be able to, like you said, study every day on a topic and to really get close to the Lord during this time. I needed that. And so I will be forever grateful that we did it and that you agreed to do it. And it's hard to put yourself out there and to be spiritually vulnerable. But I think we've both done that, and we've both shared, our hearts and our testimonies. And I'm just really grateful for that. And I think that it has shown that two people of very different faiths can have so much in common and so much to talk about and so much shared testimony despite many differences.
Yes. And it has been nice to be able to sit down and like you said, kind of be spiritually vulnerable. Because I do the theological analyses on my channel. And that's cool. And I love doing that. And I love doing that with movies, but this has been without movies. So this has just
Mm-hmm.
been, well, a few of them with movies, but mostly without movies and mostly getting spiritually vulnerable. And it's been powerful. And I've really
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed it. So thank you again.
I think my favorite is whenever we connected on ideas about, I think, forgiveness in particular, I think was my
Yeah.
favorite week. And it seems like that's ended up coming up a number of times. And I think that that's just such a tough, hard thing to do, that you really, that no matter if you're religious or not, you have to experience that. It doesn't matter what faith you are. You have to go through that if you want to live a happy life. You have to be
Yep.
willing to forgive. And I think that's probably been my favorite. And just focusing on the way that Christ has healed our hearts from those tough times of life has
Yeah.
been my favorite.
That one was so good that, apparently I can't get it out of my head because that's my theological analysis today. I did one for A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, all on forgiveness. And I
Yeah.
think that is the major focus of that movie because I think you could tell that Mr. Rogers is Christian as you watch the movie, but that's not the emphasis. The emphasis is Lloyd, whether he's Christian or not, whether he's
Yeah.
religious or not, is dealing with unforgiveness, and it's poisoning him. And it's about forgiveness setting him free.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I love that. I was kind of, I thought that movie was fine, but
Yeah.
that was probably my favorite part of it was Fred Rogers, his example of love and kindness and forgiveness, and how that changed, um, what's his name, Lloyd's
Lloyd.
life,
Yep.
and
I just watched it, so it's all
made
fresh
him
in my
be
head.
move from being the cynic to being the from to being a better man because of Fred
Yep.
Rogers. So yeah, and so we thought today, as our final for this hiatus, that we would just share our thoughts about Christ, and particularly his compassion for others. And these are all things that I pretty much shared in various other devotionals. But I think that you can really tell the compassion of Jesus with the way that he paid attention to the 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 I think you can particularly tell the compassion of Jesus with the way that he paid attention to small people around him, that other people, to the outcasts and to the people that were on the
Mm-hmm.
periphery, that weren't being paid attention to. I think he started out his ministry doing that with the woman at the well, the woman of Samaria who was living in sin. I mean, he had every reason to judge this woman, and he didn't. And he talked to her, and he reached out to her, and he's in John 4 he says that if thou knewest the gift of God, and who it is that saith to thee, give me to drink, thou wouldst have asked of him, and he would have given thee living water. So and then she goes and tells to the whole town, because she's so excited about his ministry, and him taking the time to reveal himself to this person who, for all of intents of reasons, he should have judged. I think is
Yeah.
really beautiful.
And I know it's a fictional depiction, but in The Chosen, the season finale of season 1, where it ends with him talking to the woman at the well. I would say
Mm-hmm.
spoilers, but that show is the Bible, so it's been around for a couple thousand years. Even though they took a lot of artistic license with that scene and that conversation, I think they kept spiritually true and true to the Bible. And they did a good job throughout the course of that episode showing you how marginalized she is. I mean, we're all
Yeah.
sinners. We all struggle with something in our lives, and she obviously had a struggle. She was obviously living in sin, and was cast out. But I love how it talked about in that particular show. Jesus said to her, I came to this well just to meet with you. And even though, yeah, that's not written down in scripture, I think the way they artistically depicted that captured Jesus's heart of compassion. Because I can picture that. I could picture being led by the Holy Spirit, that he knew she would be there. He knew what an outcast she was, how marginalized she was. And so he went to that well, to that spot at that time, just to meet her. Because how often in my life has Jesus been there at just the right time, just to meet me?
Right. That's right. And that he has patience with you and doesn't judge you
Yes.
for the things that you could do better, and that you feel like, oh, I'm such a failure. And we as followers of Christ can be so judgmental of
Oh,
others.
yeah.
They're not living the way that we think they should. They're not making the choices they should. They should be having more children, or they should get married, or they should, we have so many things that we think that we judge people on in their lives, that, oh, why are they going to that movie? Oh, I'm judging them, or whatever.
Yeah.
And I just think, like, the way that Christ demonstrated time and time again is that he did not judge people. He loved people, and he taught correct doctrine, and then loved people until they were obedient, basically.
Yep.
He wanted to be better because he loved you. And I think that is true Christ-like love. That, I mean, I think about my grandfather, who I loved so much, and you wanted to be a better person after spending time with him. That
Yeah.
was because he was so powerful and so strong. And if you think about that, Mr. Rogers, it's the same thing, that people wanted to be a better person from having spent time with him.
Yeah. It's funny, going back to what you said about judgment. I've found this in my life, and maybe this is true in yours, maybe it's not, but I found you got to be careful what you judge people over,
Yeah.
because there's someone in my life that kind of annoys me because of how they deal with anxiety. And I realize their anxiety annoys me because I deal with anxiety. And so I'm seeing a quality in them, which is in me, that I don't like. It's kind of like, I didn't notice Kias until I had a Kia, and then everybody in the world has a Kia. And so it's like, and when I learned that, it's still a struggle, but you realize, wow, okay, I got to switch that annoyance to compassion, because that quality that annoys me in that person is annoying me because I'm realizing it's a struggle in my life. So I need to work on that in me, and I need to show compassion to them. And sometimes I think God brings that into our lives so that we can learn to show that compassion. And it's amazing how when we unselfishly show compassion to somebody else, it can actually help us with what we're struggling with.
Yeah, I completely agree that there can, and sometimes it's stuff that you didn't even, that you were perfectly fine with this person for so long, and then somehow something gets brought up, and then it's just like a
Yeah.
you're like, it's driving me crazy. And if you can just let it go, and that's kind of, I love in What About Bob? Have you ever seen that movie?
It's been a long time,
Oh,
but I have seen that
and
movie.
just that the psychologist character, he lets everybody else is just having a great time and smiling and whatever, and he lets everything get to him, and it's driving him crazy. And I think that that's true in sometimes in life, but it comes out of pride. We want to control. We want
Yep.
everyone to like us as much. We want people to we feel a lot of times competition, and that makes us behave this way. But I love the story in Mark 5. I've mentioned it several times, with the woman with the issue of blood, 12 years,
Mm-hmm.
and that she knows, she has the faith that if she just touches Christ's garment, that she will be healed. And so she does. And again, talking about noticing the periphery, noticing the people on the edges. And he says that he felt that virtue had gone out of him. And he asks his apostles, "Who touched me?" And they're like, there's a big crowd. What's going on? I'm like, what are you talking about? They're kind of, and he knew what had happened, and he saw her. And I think that's very beautiful. And he says, but the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what was done in her, came and fell down before him and told him all the truth. And he said, daughter, thy faith hath made thee whole. Go in peace and be whole of thy plague. And I just think that is
Yeah.
so beautiful.
I think what makes it more beautiful is also when you realize, so she's had a flow of blood for 12 years. Blood, a flow of it. So what that means is she's unclean. Whatever she touches is unclean in their culture and their time. And she grabbed the hem of his garment, a holy teacher. And so when she fell on her face to tell him all, you got to think, how scary was that for her? A woman in that culture who was unclean. And Jesus turned with nothing but love and compassion and said, your faith has made you well. I mean, it's incredible when you look at that time and that period and what Jesus did.
Yeah.
Through doing this, I came across a story that I've read a million times, but it's interesting. It's the story where Jesus feeds the 5,000. But at the beginning of that story, it's interesting because John the Baptist was just beheaded, and that's Jesus's cousin. And so Jesus hears about it. And verse 13, it opens and says, when Jesus heard what had happened, he withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place. So he went to be alone when he heard John the Baptist was dead. So he was sad. He went to go be alone. And then it says, when he landed, he saw a crowd. So the crowd heard what he was doing, and they followed him. And when Jesus landed, he saw a large crowd, and he had compassion on them, and he healed their sick. And so even when he was kind of hurt and looking to be alone, when he saw that crowd, he had compassion on them. He healed their sick and spent so much time with them that the disciples said, "You got to send them home. No, they're going to be hungry." And he goes, "No, you feed them." And he took the 2 fish and the 5 loaves and fed the 5,000, not counting the women and the children, with 12 baskets left over. But all of that was done out of compassion.
Yeah. Yeah, and he wasn't even able to grieve the way that he wanted to. That he cared more about other people than he did about himself. And that's a really great example. And I just think that a lot of times that can feel like, why are we asked to go through this hard experience? And certainly we've all asked ourselves that over the course of these last 7 months. And I mean, I haven't even had the worst of it by any means. I haven't had coronavirus, knock on wood. And I haven't had anybody I know that's had it or lost any lives or, anything that there are a lot of people have had it a lot worse than I have, that's for sure. But it still has been hard. Just because other people have things hard doesn't mean what we're experiencing isn't also difficult.
Yeah.
But you look at you can easily say, well, why me? Why did this all have to happen? And yet look at the blessings. Look at how we've become friends, how we've been able to do this Sunday devotional, how, there's just been a lot of things that would not have happened, or certainly wouldn't have happened in the same way if it wasn't for the trial that we've experienced.
It reminds me of Joseph when his brothers threw him in the well. Mm-hmm. And what's so interesting about that is they had evil intent. And so what we know is God is not evil. God has no evil intent. He does not entice people to sin. And so those brothers with evil intent, something that was sin, threw Joseph in that well and sold him as a slave into Egypt. Isn't it amazing, though, that you get to the end of that and Joseph can say, what you meant for evil, God meant for good. And that God sent me ahead of you to save you. I mean, in fact, because Joseph was there in Egypt and because of the vision that God had put in Joseph, Joseph saved Egypt and Israel from this massive famine. And countless more lives were saved because Joseph. So what I'm getting at is It's amazing how, we live in a fallen world. Bad things happen. We don't have all the answers. And yet God turns those things around and brings such good.
Well, and God is omnipresent, so he understands. He's living in a future, present, and past all at the same time. And crazy, so he know, we still have our agency, but because he knows what's going to happen, he can also then use that to make whatever good he can of whatever's what we're going to decide to do. It's like on my mission, there was a man who was a giant of a person, just incredible. His name was Roger, and he was such a light. And he actually found God in prison. And when the missionaries first met him, he was covered with tattoos and just very, very scary looking to them. But once he started to change, they saw that the light, and he was just one of the most full of light people I've ever met. And just to see that transformation, and it's just amazing how God can do that with anybody, that he has that power to bring anybody to light again.
Yeah. Psalm
nobody's a lost cause.
9 says, "The Lord is good to everyone, and he showers compassion on all his creation." And so this is kind of fresh in my mind because I just did this video that is up right now. So I'll give you a preview of my theological analysis. There is one scene and a beautiful day in the neighborhood that really stands out to me, and that to me became a metaphor for the movie and Mr. Rogers' relationship with Lloyd. It was at the very, very beginning, and there's a kid visiting the set with his parents, and the kid's got tubes up his nose, and so he's probably not well. His eyes are down. He's not making eye contact. He's looking down, and he's got his toy sword, and he's swinging it like crazy, hitting his dad in the shins. And the mom and dad are trying to get the kid, come on, Mr. Rogers is talking to you. Come on. And the kid's, he's in his own world. He's not paying attention. And Mr. Rogers is so patient with him and trying to find common ground. So finally, Mr. Rogers says, that sword looks real heavy. I bet it's so heavy. And the kid looks at him and goes, well, it's not that heavy. He goes, well, then you must be real strong to be able to lift it the way that you do. And you know what? I bet you're real strong on the inside too. The kid gives up his sword and hugs Mr. Rogers. And to me, that's a metaphor for the compassion of God, because it's his compassion that he loves us as we are, and he loves us where we are. And that compassion, I think sometimes in our world, we're so prone to arguing. I mean, we argue about politics ceaselessly. We argue about religion ceaselessly. And do you know anybody that's ever been won to God through arguing? Because I don't. But it's love. It's compassion that meets us where we are, and suddenly we can put down our sword, and we want to run to that person that's showing us that compassion, and that's God. That's the compassion that he has on us.
And it helps you to become a new man or woman through Christ. And you really see it in people like Roger, or Lloyd in that movie, or when you become changed, you become that you're trying to. It's not just thoughts and prayers. Isn't just something you say. It's something that's part of who you are. And in the very first Sunday devotional that we did, I shared the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and it's one of my favorites. And one of the things I love about that story is that here they are going to be forced into these fiery furnaces where they're going to die. And it says that they're so hot that the people that were stoking the fires died. I mean, I can't even imagine. And they're given time and time again where they can worship the false idols that have been created. And I just love their response, because they say that they said, if it be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of thine hand, O king. But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. And I think that's the hardest thing in life, is to include that, but if not. That we're going through something hard, and we believe that God can make it right and make it better and make people behave better and make things stop and make the coronavirus go away. We know that God has the power to do that. But if not, what are we going to do? Are we going to have faith? Are we going to be kind? Are we going to be obedient? Are we going to, what are we going to do? Yep. And it's just such an example to me of that is true faith. That is being a follower.
Yeah.
But if not.
Yeah. And it's hard, because in this fallen world, you want people to know the compassion of God, and yet the world is so fallen. I was talking to somebody not too long ago, because the fact that my dad is alive and well today, he was in a major accident a long time ago, and that my sister is alive and well today, she was in a major accident about a decade ago, is a miracle. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I don't have time to get into that story, so I'll just say they really both should be dead. Mm-hmm. But God intervened. And as I'm telling this person this story, they're just like, well, why doesn't God intervene for everybody else? And you know what? I don't have those answers. I really, truly don't. But it's what you said, Rachel. It's faith. We got to continue to have faith in God. If my dad and sister were gone today, I believe I would still be serving God, because I know him, and I know him personally. And I know this, though, faith does move God. So, whatever situation we are in, let's let faith be an open door to let God move in that situation. Whatever situation you're in, if you go in the Bible, you go into that concordance and you look up words for your situation, I'm sure you will find a promise to match where you're at. And you can make a stand on that promise and let faith be an open door for God to move. And when we have that Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego faith, that no matter what, no matter the outcome, God, I serve you, that faith is an open door for God to do great things in our lives. Joseph could never have imagined being thrown in a pit, but God made him the second in command of all of Egypt. So we just got to continue. We may not understand our situation or understand why this person had this happen while this person didn't have that happen, but God is merciful, good, and compassionate. And so we need to have faith and know that about his character and let him move.
And that if we are forced to go through trials, and sometimes those are trials that are brought on by the choices of other people, that every people have agency, and so we have to, and God respects that, and honors our agency, but he will help us to be able to show compassion, as we've talked about, and to have the strength to get through it, to get through the tough times in life. And we've all had them, and maybe not even here during this time. Maybe it's been a great time for you, and maybe it's not. I don't know. Everybody's had a different experience, but I don't know. I've just felt such a strength, and I've always said that I feel like the one prayer that's always answered is if you ask God if he loves you. Are you there for me, Lord? I believe that God answers that prayer, and a simple prayer, if we're open to hearing the answers. And I know that he does, and I know that that Jesus did die on the cross for you and for me, and that he wants us to be kind and reach out to each other, and that we create so many divisions, and we create so many reasons that sort of justify us being unkind to people, whether it's because they're different in a number of ways. But again, I'm just really grateful to you for I think we've been able to demonstrate that that our greatnesses are that our similarities are much greater than our differences, and as far as people of faith, and that what matters is that we know that Jesus loves us, and that his power and his sacrifice is real, strong.
Yep. One verse I kind of want to end it on is this. It says here, Jesus said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field." And looking at that through the eyes of compassion, he was having compassion on the crowds right before he says this. And it's because of his compassion for the crowds that he said this. So the answer to that prayer is you and me. We are the workers. Like Rachel's been saying, we got agency. We got free will. And so part of our faith in God is letting him love through us and being his hands and feet, and being that kindness and being that compassion and being that love to people who are unlovable, to the women at the well that exist in our world today. We are called to have his heart and his compassion, and to make that choice to let him move through us and be that to other people.
Very, very true. Well, we've also been so grateful for the people that have watched every week, that have commented every week, that have made this a part of their week. Thank you so much. It has meant a lot to me. And like I said, we'll be back every once in a while. We'll kind of just make it sporadic when we feel we have something interesting to say. maybe like I said, for Christmas or something like that.
Yep.
So that'll be kind of fun. And if you have requests, just let us know and we'll talk
Yeah.
about it and we'll figure it out and we'll see what we can do. But again, I'm just so grateful. And so, yeah, let us know your thoughts. And maybe if you have a favorite of the Sunday devotionals, I'd love to hear those. I'll be reposting them. Like I'm going to start after this week. I'll start with one and then be reposting them for 28 weeks, and then we'll see where we're at. So that should be fun. But Chris, where can people find you?
You can find me on my channel, Durbanium, the one and only with that name. And I do on my channel movie reviews, ranking videos, and then this thing called a theological analysis, where I try to do them once a week. So we'll see how much that keeps happening. Sometimes, we'll just see. Anyway, I try to do them once a week, dig into movies to find God and all those great messages in movies. So definitely come and join me for that conversation. And again, thank you all who've been watching and commenting on these devotionals. It's meant a lot to us.
Yeah, definitely. Make sure y'all are subscribed. It's really good. And you can find me here at Rachel's Reviews all over social media and then iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. I've been working really hard, posting a lot of reviews, and we're getting ready for the Christmas season. That's part of the reason why I needed to take a pause, because we're going to, with Hallmarkies podcast, we're actually, I mean, it seems crazy because we're so far out from Christmas, but it's not far out in the world of Hallmark.
No.
We're going to be doing our first preview shows coming up in just a couple of weeks. And then we'll be diving in before you know it. So make sure that you check us out over there at Hallmarkies Podcast. We have a lot of really, really good stuff going on, and I'm very excited about it. So check that out. Yeah, when we meet again, it'll be great. And
It'll be
so
great.
we'll talk to you all later and have a great Sunday. Bye.